friends, it's Brittany at Ink and Papyrus and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about travel journals and how you can bring old trips back to life. The truth is, I started making junk journals to document some of my international travels, keeping a record of photos, memories, and ephemera along with special experiences to remember the trip by, I think is absolutely priceless. I'm a firm believer in starting the journal before your trip or immediately after so that the memories are fresh in your mind, if at all possible. Sometimes it's the little things that make the trip, and if we don't document those little things pretty soon after or during the trip, we forget them. Unfortunately, I have a few trips that I have of pictures and ephemera left over from that I've done no journaling for. I'm kind of ashamed of myself. One is a trip to Costa Rica in 2019. And in case you can't do math, that's 6 years. And I think the longer I've gone, the longer out from the trip that I've gone, the more I've just sort of dreaded this process because the more I've forgotten, I wasn't exactly sure the pictures I had, where they were taken or what point they were at in the trip. And a lot of the little details that I would normally put in a journal, I had forgotten and was kind of dreading filling these journal pages. And I went back and started jogging my memory. I'm going to show you a few ways to gather information, just a couple ideas of things that you can put in your journal if you've forgotten some of the little details. I had no problem filling the signature of this journal actually, and I can't wait to show you some of the strategies I found for doing so. I know you probably have pictures and ephemera left over from events that are long past, and you might not be sure to how to incorporate that into personalized layouts when you've forgotten a lot of things, but I'm going to show you a way, and I think you're going to love creating a place so that you can look back at those treasured memories, no matter how long ago they were. You see, even if you have gaps in your memory, there's still plenty to write about to commemorate your trip, and I'm going to share some prompts and places to go to get you started. I'm also going to be showing you some page layout ideas to get you started, and by that I mean some generic page layouts you can do that will pop even if you don't remember the nitty-gritty details to journal. So in case you didn't catch it as I flipped through some of the other pages, there are actually multiple trips contained within this journal. I went on several trips back to back, and I knew I'd have a better chance of documenting my trips if I made one large journal and planned to journal one trip per signature as opposed to attempting to create 3 separate journals, aka one per trip. So this is another strategy that you can use if you're like me and tend to fall behind in your journaling. I will say it can be a really rewarding way to journal, creating a specific journal for one trip, and I have done that before, but I think it's best if I come back with a ton of ephemera and or if it was in like a particularly extended trip, especially if I take a lot of pictures. I did take this approach for my trip to Little Cayman and suspect I will do the same for my upcoming trip to Italy in a few months. Um, Try and think about this ahead of time when you're structuring your journals. Costa Rica, for example, was a trip with a ton of pictures, but not a whole ton of ephemera. It was a trip taken off the beaten path, not a trip with a ton of pamphlets and sightseeing guides, and that's okay. I just recommend keeping some of those things in mind when you're planning the layout of your journal. Ask yourself, what kind of a trip is this going to be? And if you come back and say, I can't make a journal, I didn't collect anything, you are wrong. You can make ephemera and retroactively search for ephemera. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So the first and most obvious place to go to collect ephemera is going back through your email accounts. Actually, luckily, I never delete anything. I found confirmations of our dive and our snorkel trips, plane ticketing, addresses of places we stayed, places that we had mapped out prior to the trip. So in this specific trip, we stayed at a hotel the first night and then 2 Airbnbs the rest of the trip. If you go into your Airbnb account, you can see a record of the places you booked. So maybe you forgot a few details of the places you stayed. You can easily pull a record of the dates you were there and print out actually pictures of the place as long as there is still an active listing. And the same could be said for hotels that you may have stayed at, etc., etc. If you're not super prepared with a journal prior to your trip, another way to keep a log as you go or retroactively go back and find the places you went and more details about them is to save places on Google Maps. You can actually create a folder for places I've been, and you can add new places to your folder in the app. You can even drop pins if it's not a well-established place, and that way you can go back, see the restaurants you went to, exact addresses, and even take screenshots and print out menus of places or coordinates and details of places if you would like. Those really cute tamarindo postcards that you see me pasting down to use as belly bands and pockets. So I actually got those off of a website. So this is what I'm saying, and I got them for free. There's a huge collection of postcards and postage stamps that were traded around the world that were scanned into this, uploaded into this website that you can print out totally for free. And even if you're not working on a journal specific to that place, it looks amazing in any journal. So I will link those sites that I use in the description box. Check them out. But my point is, there's such a wealth of resources online, information, and pictures that you can get for free. There's no excuse if you were unable to collect ephemera on your trip. It's okay. You can find plenty of information and plenty of images you can print out for free online to help supplement your journal layouts. Okay, the next point I want to make is something that was holding me back was I felt like I couldn't place all of the photos I took. This was a very photo heavy trip, as you're seeing here, and we'll talk a little bit more about the best ways to use photos in your journal layouts to really make them come to life. But my point was that some of the photos I couldn't place. I sort of knew the general region, or maybe remembered where I took the photo, but was a little bit foggy on the details. And that's where the internet can really come into play. If you can't remember personalized memories or exactly what you did while you were there, don't worry. You can actually find a ton of information about places on the internet that you can use to supplement your layouts. And it's funny, I actually learned more about the places I went after I went home to try and do this research to complete my journal layouts than I remembered when I was there, actually, or that I learned when I was there. Sometimes we're so caught up in taking pictures and stuff, we aren't really listening if we were going on a tour or, whatnot. We're just caught up in the moment. So, for example, the second signature of this book is the Curacao section of the journal. I also completed this late. I went back into the Curacao Sea Aquarium website and was able to see features of the aquarium that started bringing back a ton of memories, including this thing called the ocean lens. So this is an area that you're able to walk down into and sit on the benches and actually look out a huge window into the ocean. It was incredible, but after a few years, I had forgotten to put that in my journal. I forgot I even did that. So luckily, I was reminded and I was able to include it on a page. So I did want to do some more journaling in the Curacao section, but I had forgotten some of the beaches I visited as well, and I was easily able to Google a map slash listing of the beaches and remember them by name. So some of the other pages had some blank spots, and I Googled some of Curaçao's flora and fauna. So this is another great prompt to fill some journal space, give yourself an excuse to doodle, make your pages informative, and really show off the flavor of the place that you're talking about. The picture of that cacti and that cave entrance, I didn't even know, I couldn't remember what that was. I simply used that as a pull-off spot. I actually ran this through my AI and it gave me possible suggestions of where, what this location may actually be. It guessed incorrectly a location in Mexico, but it also gave me a possible location in Curacao, which was Hato Caves. I had no idea when I pulled off at the time. I think this may actually be it. So I was able to Google Hato Caves. There's a whole history behind it, how, like, actually how it was used, and I did some journaling in this little booklet of a flag of Curacao that I simply printed a picture of the Curacao flag out, folded in half, and used it for some extra journaling room. So while we're off track and not working in the Costa Rica section like I'm supposed to be, this is the Belize signature, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what to do if you're feeling stuck because you feel like you don't have specific memories to draw upon. Maybe it's been so long that all you can come up with is a kind of vague layout. That's okay. This grid journaling layout is kind of a page filler for me, but I end up loving it. And it is a very generic layout that expresses the feelings and the memories that I made there and the overall tone of the trip without referencing specific details. I hope that makes sense. So to start, I ended up taking a stamp pad. You can totally draw your lines out if you like to grid journal like that, but I don't know. I hate measuring things. And I find that on a page like this, where I want about 4 or 5 squares, a stamp pad is the perfect size to create a grid for me without any measuring or any fuss. Grid journaling is one of my other favorite travel layouts to complete. You can fit several themes onto a single page if you would like. So once I have my grids on, I usually do a couple of doodles or splash some paint on because it's so much less intimidating to get started this way. So next, I want you to think of some themes that you might want to doodle or paint. What about some native flowers in each of the squares, like flowers native to the place you visited? Or maybe each square is going to represent a different place that you went on your trip. You can doodle or paint that place, or you can simply fill the square with things that represent that place. So I'm doing this for Belize, but if I was doing this for Costa Rica, maybe I do a square per excursion. One square is a picture of a monkey with tickets to Manuel Antonio National Park, which I visited. I'll tell you a little bit about it later. The next is a painting about a fish and maybe confirmation of the dive charter I went on. And the next square could be a picture of ingredients of my favorite cocktail I had there. Use your imagination. What you see here is a grid journal of experiences I had in Belize, like I said, the first trip contained in this journal. In this specific layout, the first square represents a place I loved, a sports bar and grill. They had the best cocktails. I did take a picture of the menu and I did tuck it into a pocket earlier in this journal, but essentially that's what the first square represents. The second square is self-explanatory. We got to venture to this place called Holchan. It essentially is one of the most beautiful coral gardens around, and I got to swim with nurse sharks and gorgeous fish. So that's what this terrible but cute drawing represents. The third square represents what a relaxing trip this was. There wasn't a whole lot to do on the island of Cape Calker where I stayed. I mean, that was kind of the charm. So if you weren't in the water, you were probably laying by the beach in an area they called the Split or sipping a cocktail somewhere. We all need trips like that, right? The next square just represents the ocean. Self-explanatory. It was a water trip. After all, it was a trip mostly meant for enjoyment of the ocean. And the last square is Lamanai. Lamanai is an archaeological reserve with some incredible history behind it. And yes, I did take a whole journal page to include some pictures of our tour and the information I found most incredible about the place. And I found that information after I went home and researched it. I had long forgotten most of what I learned on the tour, but a simple Google search filled in a lot of holes and filled up an entire journal page of fun facts about it. So, like I was talking about flora and fauna, that is a perfect prompt if you're not sure what to fill your journal with. And it's something that's so easy to look up after you go home. So, and these are obviously perfect things to doodle into grids if you're trying to do a grid journal and fill up some space and also make your pages informative. A lot of times I'll look up flora and fauna after I get back home and I'll be like, oh yeah, I saw a ton of those. I just weren't sure what they were at the time. Challenge yourself to watercolor paint or doodle some flowers and plants that are native to the region. If you didn't take pictures, so if you did take pictures, maybe do an interpretation of that thing, and you can even use a plant finder to um, figure out like what plant it actually was. You can Google some information about them. And then, alternatively, if you didn't take any pictures of flowers or plants in the region, you can easily Google them and just take screenshots and then, paint an interpretation or doodle an interpretation of that. That can be really, really fun. While we're here talking about the prompt flora and fauna, what about creating a page layout that includes several species of animals you saw or heard about on your trip? Maybe create a colorful background with colored pencil or gelatos or splashing some paint, and then crop pictures. Aside from, well, of course, you could paint them yourself, but if you're too intimidated to do that, maybe get actual, search the animals native to the region and, print them out and then crop them into a layout. Just like you'll see me crop a lot of pictures throughout this video, crop your own printed pictures. And because if you're printing it on really thin paper, they'll be so easy to cut out and crop into a layout that you create. So, by the way, an easy way to resize multiple images and print them out without wasting a ton of paper is just by copying and pasting them into a Word document. You can even narrow the margins so you waste as little space as possible and then print them. So just an idea. So if you don't come home with ephemera, there are still so many ways to express some of the memories that you made and show a ton of things that are native to the region and actually make a very informative journal. Like I said, by going through this process, I was kind of down at first. I didn't think I'd be able to fill up a signature because I felt like it had been too long since my last trip and I wasn't going to be able to remember anything. And I ended up by searching about places and doing some more research because I had to. I actually gathered more information and learned more about the trip than I think that I did while I was there. This place was actually a major city of the Maya civilization, and the vast majority of the site remained unexcavated until the mid 1970s. History is absolutely fascinating, and like I said, it's due to some of the late junk journals I've put together that really forced me to look up things to find some information to journal about. And in turn, like I said, I think I learned more about this place after I got home than I ever did while I was there. And it really only makes me appreciate the places that I've traveled that much more. So back to our Costa Rica signature to finish things out. You'll see me just sorting through the ephemera that I did collect. It wasn't a whole lot, but I do try and at least, if I'm going to be behind, I at least segregate everything, the pictures and the ephemera, into envelopes of some kind. That at least makes it easier to go back and journal about later if you're not trying to sort through what ephemera you got on one trip. One thing you'll notice about this journal is that it is very photo heavy. Some of you might like that, some of you may not. I kind of was not as discriminate about the photos I developed as I wish I would have been. That's okay. I'm going to show you a few ways I like cutting up the photos and cropping them into my layouts. This is another way I like to revive old trips and bring them back to life, not just figuratively, but now literally by taking pictures and altering them, making them the focal points to tell a story or just bring some life to the page. It's such a great way to relive trips and literally bring your layouts to life. With regard to the photos themselves, like I said, I like cropping them in ways that kind of add dimension and depth to the page. You can use whole photos, that's fine. If you can't part with any of the photo, that's okay. But if you do this for everyone, you're going to end up with just a photo album and no room to display any other ephemera or write anything about your trip. I love photos in my travel journal. The saying a photo is worth 1,000 words could not be overstated, but I think they look best on a page with some other things. First, I like to scan through the photos and divide them into groups. I sorted them into groups to reflect the different areas in Costa Rica that I visited. You can sort them differently if you like. That's just how I thought it would be easier to document the trip by segregating them into the different distinct regions of Costa Rica that I visited. For the first page of the journal, I decided to make this the Bon Voyage page. A couple really cool elements of the trip come to life here. You'll see we took a puddle jumper over to Curacao, and so I got to sit right behind the pilot, so I cropped the photo to include him at like the front of the page, kind of like the front of the bus, and worked my way up from there. Next, I cropped the picture of the plane because that's such a unique shape. It really adds character to the page. I have in the background, I have a postcard from that site, or I think they're actually like blown up stamps with the actual, not cancellation mark, but you know what I mean, kind of, you know, stamped over top of them, and it was blown up and created into like a postcard format. Like I said, I included the link to that site that has a ton of free stamps and postcards that you can print out in the description box below. I thought the white space was pretty boring, so I just took an ink dauber that I had and went over the background in different shades of blue to kind of simulate clouds, to work the cropped photo of the clouds into the journal. And you'll see that I do this on several pages, whether it be with inks or, you know, splatters of paint or colored pencil. Sometimes when you crop pictures, they can be a little bit weird depending on the shape. Weird in the sense that it kind of just looks like it's a crop picture that's not meant to be there, but when you work on taking different colors and blending the photo into the background, I think it really brings it to life. I'm sorry, I think I said Caycaca earlier. That was where we stayed in Belize. See, I'm getting all my trips mixed up. This is what happens when we're bouncing from signature to signature. No, this page is the first signature page, the first page of the Costa Rica signature, and we got on a puddle jumper for the last leg of the trip to where we were going in Costa Rica and sat behind the pilot. I'm sorry for any confusion. The journaling that I did was about our adventures when we first got to San Jose, Costa Rica. And you know, the free little notepads they leave laying around in the hotel, I snagged that. It's got a bunch of stuff on Spanish on it, which was perfect. I went ahead and journaled about getting into San Jose and all of the adventures basically surrounding the traffic in San Jose. It was nothing like I had ever seen before. It was the most congested place. We're kind of second thinking our decision to come here. It was wild. We're more of like reserved, laid back, kind of desolate island kind of people, and we saw so many people, but we hightailed it out of the city really quickly. We only spent one night here at the Hampton Inn. We did enjoy our first night. Like I said, traffic was just crazy. Pulling out of there and trying to get on the road in San Jose, oh my gosh, I thought we were gonna die. Nobody stopped, and we finally were just like, screw it. We just pull out, and the next person has to slam on their brakes. And that was the tale of our time in Costa Rica. It was going to the hotel, kicking our feet up, and then leaving. And wow, it was still quite the adventure. Um, Otherwise, I thought it was so cool that San Jose actually had a cornhole in their Hampton Inn, and I think we needed the R&R time when we got back to the hotel, so that's how we spent our first night, dodging traffic, trying to stay alive, eating at an IHOP, and playing cornhole. I had some Happy Planner stickers I picked up at the thrift store. They were all based around travel and adventure, and one is a compass that I went ahead and just plopped down to the left of my journal layout, and then the other one is this Bon Voyage sticker with some grids down below it, and I just used that space to write the coordinates of San Jose, where we spent our first day. You can easily get these coordinates on Google Maps. Every time we went to a new place, I tried to include the new coordinates again. If little things like this that you can easily find if you don't really remember, the little details of your trip, there's still a ton of information that you can include in your journals. On the next page, I simply added 2 pictures that we took as we were traveling out of the San Jose area. You can tell this area is more populated. I didn't do a whole lot of cropping because I wanted to just give a sense of like the architecture, and kind of the contrast up top is very, when we started to get out to the rural area, and then below it is a bridge in a very populated area of San Jose. And I cropped out a picture. I took pictures of the road signs to try and give me a general kind of feel of where we're at in the area. And a lot of the road signs I also cropped, and I love the way this looks. If you just if you crop out the sign, just cut out the sign, including like the legs, and just kind of stack them or position them in a way over another picture, it just gives it a lot of dimension and almost kind of gives the viewer a feel of actually traveling in real time. Plus, it's a great way to remember kind of the areas you traveled through, and gives you a great opportunity to go back later and look up the place, and write about it and get more information about it. So that's why I always try, when we're traveling through towns, I always try and take pictures of the signs. And when you get your pictures developed, it kind of makes it easier to, again, if you're doing your journaling later, it makes it easier to go back and kind of look at your journey through where you went and the stops you made and things like that. On the next page, I added pictures of the first Airbnb we stayed at, and again, I was able to go back and get a bunch more information about the Airbnb just by looking at my past trips and reservations, and I remembered some really cool things about the place, but like actually getting specifics and the address and everything like that was really helpful to fill in some of the blanks. Remember how I talked about creating a background that allows your photo to kind of look like it's exactly where it's supposed to be? It's not out of place, and it blends your photo into the background while still maintaining it as the focal point. So I can't paint, I can't draw, you guys know that by now, but somehow I splashed some paint on the page, created a little bit of a landscape with some palm trees to match the tranquil location of the Airbnb. I cropped down a kind of in a weird shape. I don't even know what shape this would be, but I cropped down the picture into a shape that kind of complemented the dimensions of the pool. And since the pool had palm trees all around it, I thought the background I painted was a perfect fit. And in order to kind of not blend, what's the word, tie the 2 pages together, I just folded the photo on itself and just basically glued it to both sides of the pages here. Make sure you fold it really well, or else, and glue it in really well. If you don't really crease it, it's gonna kind of like peel up and it's not going to sit really well in between the pages of the journal. Alternatively, if you wanted to do it like this, you don't have to glue the whole things down. You could just glue the sides down to create like pockets or belly bands. You don't have to just glue the photos to the pages every time. You can staple them, you can sew them. I like using pictures as flip ups. Sometimes, like, I'm a little self conscious about my handwriting. It's not good, just to put it mildly. So, a lot of times, I like to actually create hidden journaling room with the pictures themselves, using the pictures as flip ups to journal underneath. Alternatively, if you want to not glue your photos down and place them in a tuck or a pocket, um, you know, journaling on the photos themselves doesn't work really well. The backside is glossy and the ink tends to smudge, but just by covering it with a really light paper, you could journal directly on the back of the photo. I've never tried to gesso the back of a photo before. I imagine it would probably work really well. Obviously, you just have to be really careful not to get the gesso anywhere near the front of the picture, or else it'll get all smudgy. This next picture coming up is a perfect example of a picture that looks great cropped, that really brings the photo to life. This is the suspension bridge that Costa Rica is kind of famous for at one of the places we visited. I think it was called the Rainmaker. It is a national park. It's full of waterfalls, and I chose to basically crop the suspension bridge and place it on the page in a way where I really thought it kind of gave it depth, as if you were looking onto the bridge. I also cropped my head, and when you crop pictures like this, a lot of times they look better on the edge of the page if there's a sharp cut to it, so it doesn't look like you just chop someone's head off. Hopefully you know what I mean. And I used it as a pocket and a tuck spot rather. So there are all different kind of clever things you can do by cropping your photos. Here's a layout, a single page layout of some of the best parts of the place, the Rainmaker that I visited. There was stairs going up to something, and the stairs had a lizard on them. And so that was one photo. Then I cropped another photo of me standing in the waterfall, but I abutted it exactly up in front of the stairs, almost like it looked like the stairs were carrying me to the waterfall. And then I cropped a sign that says the Rainmaker. I did, like the flowers, the vine that kind of grow from signs. After I blended everything kind of into the background with a brown colored pencil, I went around the sign and just doodled some leaves and kind of made it look like brush that had overgrown. I also took a picture of a sign that was basically warning people of snakes, and since there was a reptile in the picture, I thought that would be really cool. So I superimposed the sign of the warning of the snakes right at the top of the stairs. So essentially this layout combines like 4 or 5 different pictures, and I don't feel that I lost anything from each of the individual pictures by cropping them. And in fact, I feel like I told a much better story by cropping the photos and superimposing them upon each other. I hope that makes sense. And I saved myself a whole lot of room, as opposed to just stacking pictures as is unaltered into a journal. Next, I just journaled a little bit of information about the Rainmaker itself. I journaled some of the memories we made on our hikes there, as well as some of the information, some of the more particulars that I found on the internet. This is another reason why I love blending pictures into the background with watercolors and colored pencil. It's so easy to journal on top of it. You never know what you might want to write or add to a page, and by using those mediums that are really easy to write over, it gives yourself another opportunity to do some journaling at the end if you would like. Okay, as for the layout next to this page, I visited and hiked a volcano named Rincon, and it was incredible. It's actually an active volcano. I think there are only like 3 active volcanoes in Costa Rica, but that is one of them. And that also, they had the suspension bridges there, so I incorporated those in the layout. I also cut up some signs that we encountered while we were there to try and, give the layout some dimension and make it a little bit more lifelike. So I actually had some more pictures from Rincon that I wanted to use or have in my journal, but I don't want to take up every single page with photos. So I just made the suspension bridge into a pocket and took some of the photos that I took at Rincon and included them into the suspension bridge pocket, and I stapled our tickets on top. I was kind of looking around to see if I wanted to put the tickets somewhere else, but I thought that it would be really good to just put them on the couple of pages that I dedicated to this specific volcano, and there you go. I even had some pictures of these banana leaves that I really liked, but I didn't want to use up the entire page of just leaves, so I cropped out some of the leaves, and I didn't think they necessarily were popping on the page like I wanted to, so I just went around them with a charcoal pencil, which is a foolproof way to make something or anything into a focal point and really make it pop. Ringon itself is full of natural wonders. It is full of springs and mud pots and waterfalls. The mud pots are boiling. So naturally, in one of these pictures, my better half had to stick his you know what out to kind of make it look like he was creating the sulfur steam. Yeah, he's a real winner, that one. In addition to the tickets, I also did get a map of Rincon while I was there, so I just used a cropped version of me as a tuck spot to hold the map in place, and I thought it was just a great way to incorporate it into the journal. You can pull it out this way, it's not glued down to the page, you can look at the whole thing, but it's not taking up 2 signature full pages of room. Here's another layout example of cropped pictures, basically creating an entire new scenery. This is a town we visited called Quepos. Here, another couple layouts. One is just a photo of a lizard that was sunbathing while we were eating our lunch. I went around the lizard with some gelatos, and I just started making circles and decided to add some petals and turn them into flowers. And the next layout next to it is some pictures of the traffic jam that we encountered on the road in Costa Rica. Okay, friends, and for this last little bit, I just want to show you 2 little ephemera projects that are really cute, really easy. Let's say you didn't get to collect ephemera from wherever you were staying and you want to make some of your own. Well, here are some really cute tickets and postage stamps that you can make in a jiffy, and you can customize them to be any theme you want depending on the kind of trip that you took. First, you just want to grab a strip of paper and you want to divvy it up into sections. These are going to be your tickets, so make them as large or as small as you would like. Next, we're just going to punch holes on the outer portions of the paper and then at the bottom of the line to demarcate the ticket stub. I chose to just go over the pencil lines with a blue pen, but you could make little dots, you could take stickles and drop little stickles down, however you want to demarcate between each of the tickets. Decorating these is so much fun. You don't have to use scraps of paper. You can use fabric. You can paint on them, doodle on them, stamp on them. You can make them mixed media, whatever you would like. I did a little something different on each ticket. First ticket, I simply punched out an image from cardstock of a bunch of fishies on it. For the second ticket, I made a little washi tape background. For the next ticket, I cut out some fins and made a whole beachy little ticket there. And then for the last one, I added a beach ball and some sunglasses and sunscreen, you know, just the basic beach accessories. Just like with grid journaling, you can make these to suit any theme you would like. If you went to a restaurant and you had an appetizer, drinks, an entree, and a dessert, you could either cut out pictures or doodle your own versions of that food. You could take plants that are native to the region and draw a plant on every ticket. There are a ton of different things that you can do with these to customize these to reflect your trip. I personally think these tickets are darling and I can't wait to stuff them in a pocket in my journal. Next, I just dig out my postage stamp punch because why not? And I was really inspired by these cute little fishes on that cardstock I was holding earlier. So I fussy cut out fishes and all I did was back them with some fabric, each a different fabric to give them a little bit of texture, and went around their mouths and dropped some stickles down to make it look like there were bubbles. I know these are really simple. A third grader could have put these together, but I was digging it. I love it. I can't wait to either put them on some envelopes. Maybe I'll do some separate journaling, like some hidden journaling, and put the faux stamps on the envelopes. Maybe I'll use these as page trim. Maybe I'll just incorporate the stamps into my layout. Who knows? But they're adorable no matter where you put them. So friends, thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. Travel journaling is some of the most rewarding journaling you can do, and there's something so priceless about being able to look back on memories you've made and places you have visited. I hope I inspired you to maybe revive some of your old trips or old memories into a travel journal. I hope I have shown you some ways to do that, even if your memories have faded a little bit. Like I said, I think I learned more about my trips when I came home than I did while I was actually on them. So you have options. There's a wealth of information out there. There's a wealth of places to find pictures and ephemera, or just like the end of this video, you can make your own. If you enjoyed this, found value in this, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you the next time.